History is often decided by fragile moments. In March 1953, Stalin's death seemed to close a chapter in the world's brutal past. But what if that pivotal moment never happens? Back then, the dictator lay quietly in bed, and death was near him. The doctors had completely given up hope, gradually accepting the fact that there was no cure. But his iron will won. He regained consciousness to the amazement of onlookers. His recovery was not a miracle. It was rumored to be a curse. Stalin focused on his recovery and quickly regained power. Those who conspired to succeed him were all part of the purge plan. Now he wanted more than just power, he wanted more, absolute power. The world had breathed a sigh of relief as he neared death. Now he would make them hold their breath. The 5-year plans were accelerated. Factories were ordered to begin manufacturing weapons. The T-54 tank, the new symbol of Soviet power, was mass-produced. Every worker is a soldier in this giant industrial war. Heavy guns began to be moved west. The Soviet Red Army had to train in the cold, harsh snow of Siberia. And he just stood there watching. Every detail, every action and calculation, every plan. Parades in Red Square are not for celebration or performance, but for intimidation and display of enormous power. A new generation is trained strictly in absolute iron discipline. And in the darkness, secret missile weapons began moving into position. Laboratories raced to create the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. Stalin's office became the center of a global geopolitical chess game. The Western Bloc began to realize that things had changed. In Washington and London, earlier complacency quickly turned to fear. The Western sky is equipped with 24/7 radar surveillance without a minute of rest. U-2 spy planes were ordered to fly higher, trying to peek into Soviet secrets. But each intelligence flight was a dangerous gamble, because they did not know what the Soviets were planning. Intelligence data confirmed. The Soviet bear was not only awake, it was also hungry. Stalin sensed the fear of the Western Bloc. Real power is intimidation. Anxiety began to spread to the streets of the West. Listening to the world's panic for the first time, he felt safe. Obviously, his first target was Berlin. But this time, it wasn't just a wall. He intended to strangle the entire city. In the early morning of August 12, 1954, the Iron Ring began to tighten. Stalin really took action. The announcement was made urgently. West Berlin was completely blocked. The city was once again divided, not by walls, but by guns. The people protested, but this time, they faced the Red Army directly. All roads and railways were cut off, blocking Berlin's entire path of retreat. Food is running out. Fuel is running out. The city is running out of life. The West responded with a new airlift effort. But this is not 1948. The skies are no longer safe. Stalin watched them, toying with them like a cat playing with a mouse, with the aim of wearing down the enemy's resources. For Berliners, every flight is a gamble, betting lives between hope and destruction. And every day the Iron Ring tightens. Western media called this an act of war, but no one dared to stand up and fight back fiercely. A heroic airlift, but it was not enough. The West faced a painful choice: World War III or abandon Berlin. Stalin released the Hawks. The MiGs began to harass and disrupt the skies in an attempt to stop the airlift. His personal complacency reached a new level that was much more frightening. The propaganda system celebrated the great victory over imperialism in jubilation. 2 years later, 1956, in Budapest, the flame of hope still flickered. The younger generation of Hungary, believing that Stalin was old and feeble, began to demand freedom. Reports were sent back to Moscow. They had seriously underestimated his cruelty. Pro-democracy protests began to appear on the streets of Budapest. Tensions quickly escalated as security forces began to appear. But Stalin did not hesitate. He was more decisive than ever. The order was given immediately. The crackdown was immediate and overwhelming. The people's resistance was brave, but completely futile against military might. This is not a peaceful, humane campaign. This is a war of extermination. Budapest city engulfed in raging flames. Hidden in the dark alleys, fear is the only thing left, most clearly present. The purge begins. Anyone suspected will disappear. The walls silently record the story of a massacre. In just 48 hours, the Hungarian Revolution was completely crushed. From Moscow, Stalin watched. The order he wanted was being restored with tanks and guns. The brutal truth of the massacre was completely hidden from the outside world. At the United Nations, weak words of condemnation were heard, but they were meaningless before the muzzles of tanks. The price was thousands of deaths and tens of thousands more were arrested in the purges. Every trace of the uprising was erased as if it had never existed. A message was sent. There was no hope, only Stalin's dictatorial will. We move forward to 1960. The world is now forged by fear. Stalin, 81, knew his time was running out. He wanted to complete his legacy. NATO had a clear sense that something terrible was coming. At the German border, tensions reached a peak, intense fighting between two military powers. From all over, the whole world is holding its breath, watching this dangerous confrontation. But Stalin was no longer interested in conventional warfare. He was aiming for nuclear targets. The time for negotiations is over. Both powers are preparing for the worst-case scenario. And then, an unknown missile launch was detected. The alarm sounded. This was not a drill. Believing that the enemy was about to launch a preemptive attack, he gave his final orders. And then, the final command was obeyed. Somewhere, a trembling hand pressed the decisive red button. The concept of mutually assured destruction has been activated. The angels of the apocalypse have been released from their chains. There was no turning back. The Western Bloc's retaliation had been launched. In the shelters, all they could do was wait. Flying high in the sky, in the absolute silence of space, bullets carrying death were rushing towards. The first target was set, Berlin, where it all began. Stalin did not need to turn around. He knew exactly what he had just ordered. In just a millionth of a second, an entire city evaporated completely. Centuries-old symbols of European history erased forever. A giant mushroom cloud rises, a monument to the madness of a single man. The retaliation was automatic and immediate. Paris, London, and even Moscow itself. The last World War started and ended in just a few hours. After the screams, all communication channels fell silent. The world's greatest fear has finally come true. Stalin watched the world burn. He won by overturning the entire chessboard. The destruction was not just in Europe, it was global. No more government, no more media, just silence. The world as we know it is completely gone. The great war machines were now just steel tunes to radio to anyone alive. We failed. From his bunker, he read the report. Hundreds of millions dead, he had won. His legacy is not an empire, but ashes. Years passed, he lived, but the world did not. He raised his glass. To toast to what? To silence? The world has been conquered, but there is no one left to rule. The Berlin Wall is gone, along with everything else. He gained the world, but at the cost of its soul. Even his monuments did not escape destruction. One man changed history by ending it. If Stalin had lived longer, perhaps no one would have survived to tell this story.